Hey guys, back for another installment of this Power of Positive Thinking series. Just a quick recap for those of you who are new. I read the book, The Power of Positive Thinking by, his name escaped my mind. Think about it later. I read this book called The Power of Positive Thinking by Dr. Norman Vincent Peale. That's what it was. A few months ago, and I thought it was a really excellent book. I thought it was really helpful for getting from a situation where you're thinking negatively and therefore bringing about negative situations in your life to a situation where you're thinking positively and thereby bringing positive effects in. So there's so much actionable advice in the book. I figured I would kind of break it down week by week and then commit myself to one particular actionable item each week. And so I wanted to, I've been doing this, as time goes on and sharing it on YouTube Live so that you can do it along with me. I'm choosing one thing that I'm going to do for the week and then inviting you to do it along with me. So for this week, this is a bit of a long passage. It includes a story, so bear with me. It says, throughout the Bible, the truth is emphasized again and again that if ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, possible unto you. Matthew 7:20. The Bible means this absolutely, factually, completely, and literally. It isn't an illusion, it isn't a fantasy, it is not an illustration, nor a symbol, nor a metaphor, but the absolute fact. Faith, even as a grain of mustard seed, will solve your problems, any of your problems, all of your problems, if you believe it and practice it. According to your faith, be it unto you. Matthew 9:29. The requirement is faith, and directly in proportion to the faith that you have and use will get you results. Little faith gives you little results. Medium faith gives you medium results. Great faith gives you great results. But in the generosity of Almighty God, if you have only the faith symbolized by a grain of mustard seed, it will do amazing things in solving your problems. For example, let me tell you the thrilling story of my friends Maurice and Mary Alice Flint. I became acquainted with them when a previous book of mine, A Guide to Confident Living, was condensed in Liberty magazine. Maurice Flint at that time was failing, and failing badly. Not only was he failing in his job, but as a person as well. He was filled with fear and resentment and was one of the most negative persons I have ever encountered. He was endowed with a nice personality and at heart was a wonderful fellow, but he had simply messed life up, as he himself admitted. He read the condensation of the book in which is emphasized the idea of mustard seed faith. At this time, he was living in Philadelphia with his family, a wife, and 2 sons. He telephoned my church in New York, but for some reason did not make contact with my secretary. I mention this to show his already changing mental attitude, for normally he would never have called the second time, because it was his pathetic habit to give up everything after a feeble effort. But in this instance, he persevered until he got through and secured the information relative to the time of church services. The next Sunday, he drove from Philadelphia to New York with his family to attend church, which he continued to do even in the most inclement weather. In an interview later, he told me his life story in full detail and asked if I thought he could ever make anything of himself. The problems of money, of situations, of debts, of the future, and primarily of himself were so complicated and he was so overwhelmed with difficulty that he regarded the situation as completely hopeless. I assured him that if he would get himself personally straightened out and get his mental attitudes attuned to God's pattern of thought, and if he would learn and utilize the technique of faith, all of his problems could be solved. One attitude that both he and his wife had to clear out of their minds was that of resentment. They were duly mad at everybody, and acutely so at some. They were in their present unhappy condition, so they reasoned in their diseased thoughts, not because of any failure on their part, but because of dirty deals other people had given them. They actually used to lie in bed at night, telling each other what they would like to say to other people by way of insult. In this unhealthy atmosphere, they tried to find sleep and rest, but with no successful result. Maurice Flint really took to the faith idea. It gripped him as nothing ever had. His reactions were weak, of course, for his willpower was disorganized. At first, he was unable to think with any power or force due to his long habit of negativism, but he held on tenaciously, even desperately, to the idea that if you have faith as a grain of mustard seed, nothing is impossible. With what force he did have, he absorbed faith. Of course, his capacity to have faith gradually increased as he practiced it. One night, he went into the kitchen where his wife was washing dishes. He said, "The faith idea is comparatively easy on Sunday in church, but I can't hold it. It fades. I was thinking that if I could carry a mustard seed in my pocket, I could feel it when I begin to weaken, and that would help me to have faith." He then asked his wife, "Do we have any of those mustard seeds, or are they just something mentioned in the Bible? Are there mustard seeds today?" She laughed and said, "I have some right here in a pickle jar." She fished one out and gave it to him. "Don't you know, Maurice," Mary Alice said, "that you don't need an actual mustard seed? That is only the symbol of an idea." "I don't know about that," he replied. "It says mustard seed in the Bible, and that's what I want. Maybe I need the symbol to get faith." He looked at it in the palm of his hand and said wonderingly, "Is that all the faith I need? Just a small amount, like this tiny grain of mustard seed?" He held it for a while and then put it in his pocket, saying, "If I can just get my fingers on that during the day, it will keep me working on this faith idea." But the seed was so small he lost it, and he would go back to the pickle jar for another one, only to lose it also. One day, when another seed became lost in his pocket, the idea came to him. Why couldn't he put the grain of mustard seed into a plastic ball? He could carry this ball in his pocket or put it on his watch chain, always to remind him that if he had faith as a grain of mustard seed, nothing would be impossible unto him. He consulted a supposed expert in plastics and asked how to insert a mustard seed in a plastic ball so there would be no bubble. The expert said it could not be done, for the reason that it had never been done before, which of course was no reason at all. Flint had enough faith by this time to believe that if he had faith even as a grain of mustard seed, he could put a mustard seed in a plastic sphere. He went to work and kept at it for several weeks and finally succeeded. He made up several pieces of costume jewelry, necklace, bow pin, keychain, bracelet, and sent them to me. They were beautiful, and on each gleamed the translucent sphere with the mustard seed within. With each one was a card which bore the title Mustard Seed Remembrancer. The card also told how this piece of jewelry could be used, how the mustard seed would remind the wearer that excuse me, I lost my place here. Okay. The card also told how this piece of jewelry could be used, how the mustard seed would remind the wearer that if he had faith, nothing was impossible. He asked me if I thought these articles could be merchandised. I was a bit doubtful, I must admit, and showed them to Grace Orsler, consulting editor of Guidepost magazine. She took the jewelry to our mutual friend, Mr. Walter Hoving, president of Bonwit Teller Department Stores, one of the greatest executives in the country. He at once saw the possibilities in this project. Imagine my astonishment and delight when in the New York papers a few days later was a 2-column advertisement reading "Symbol of Faith, a genuine mustard seed enclosed in a sparkling glass makes a bracelet with real meaning." And in the advertisement was the scripture passage, "If ye have faith as a grain of mustard seed, nothing shall be impossible unto you." Matthew 17:20. These articles sold like hotcakes. Now hundreds of great department stores and shops throughout the country find difficulty keeping them in stock. Mr. and Mrs. Flint have a factory in a Midwestern city producing mustard seed remembrancers. Curious, isn't it? A failure goes to church and hears a text out of the Bible and creates a great business. Perhaps you had better listen more intently to the reading of the Bible and the sermon the next time you go to church. Perhaps you too will get an idea that will rebuild not only your life, but your business as well. Faith in this instance created a business for manufacturers and distributors of a product that has helped and will help thousands upon thousands of people. So popular and effective is it that others have copied it. But the Flint Mustard Seed Remembrancer is the original. The story of the lives that have been changed by this one little device is one of the most romantic spiritual stories of this generation. But the effect on Maurice and Mary Alice Flint, the transformation of their lives, the remaking of their characters, the releasing of their personalities, this is a thrilling demonstration of faith power. No longer are they negative, they're positive. No longer are they defeated, they are victorious. They no longer hate. They have overcome resentment, and their hearts are filled with love. They are new people with a new outlook and a new sense of power. They are two of the most inspiring people I ever knew. So that's it. This idea of having faith is absolutely massive if you're trying to do anything, right? If you don't have faith, then everything you do is, well, it's you can't have any faith in the outcome, right? You can't know that it's going to succeed. It's always going to be a source of anxiety, right? You're going to have anxiety in every part of your life if you can't have faith. Faith is the opposite of anxiety. So if you do have anxiety and you have negative expectations about what's going to happen, then faith is the antidote to that. And I actually went and bought the very necklace that he's talking about. I don't know if you can see that, but there's tiny little mustard seed in there. So I find the symbol helpful. I mean, and maybe you don't need it, right? Maybe this is something you can just remind yourself of by yourself, or maybe you can just put something in your pocket, right? This particular symbol doesn't have any power of its own. It's just the power that you give it using the power of your mind. And you could just put a penny in your pocket or something a little bit unusual that every time you feel it, every time you look at it, every time you take it out, every time you put it on, it gives you that reminder that to have that faith, right? And that everything in your life will turn out a whole lot better if you do have that faith, and you'll feel a whole lot better on the way towards it turning out better, which are actually kind of the same thing in general, because if you feel good about something, you do a much better job of it and it turns out a lot better. So what I would invite you to do is to come up with some sort of symbol or some sort of physical thing that will remind you to have faith on a daily basis. And so I have the necklace, but, and you can get it on Amazon. It was like $10 or something. So if you want to get it, then go for it. But, anything will work. So that's it. That's going to be my homework for the week, is to remember to have faith every time I possibly can. Remember that I have God working on my side. I have someone in my corner, and that if I am doing right by him, then I cannot fail. And if I have that faith, then I won't have anxiety, and I will do the actions that are necessary to get to the place that I'm supposed to be and to be successful in the things that I'm supposed to be successful in. So I hope that was helpful. Hey, Nick, how are you doing? I just saw your comment. So that's it for this week. I will see you next week, and I hope this makes a difference for you. See you later.